welcome back to my channel. This is just like an update video, no real agenda, just talking about different things really. Haven't taken any notes, so I'm just talking about just a few things. Yeah, it's very cold today, strong winds blowing. It's quite strange, it's like a sort of what I call a micro winter, because we've had such warm weather and then all of a sudden it's become very cold. Quite a contrast to the last couple of days. It's like suddenly the weather has decided we're back in February or January. When we were in January and February, the weather was feeling more like spring, and then we had a period that felt like early summer, and it's like very disconcerting because you don't quite know where you are, and the seasons just don't make sense anymore, which I feel is global warming. It's just everything's kind of out of sync. It must be causing the animals and plants so much confusion that go thinking, oh, it's summer, we can come out, and all these butterflies and bees coming out, and then, oh, now it's winter again. So yeah, I had some hot chocolate with marshmallows and a little warmed up brioche a moment ago, brioche rolls, just because I needed a hot chocolate as it felt really cold, and I put the heating back on, and I didn't think I'd have to put the heating back on, but yeah, it's very strange. It's very sunny outside, but it's just cold. There's a strong cold wind blowing. Anyhow, yeah, I just wanted to say in my previous video, by the way, I hope it didn't come across too wrong when I was talking about autism and counselling. When I looked back over the video, I was thinking, because I did speak my mind quite a bit, and I might have said some things that didn't go down too well with some people, so I apologise if I said anything that I don't know, didn't gel with you or whatever. I do speak my mind sometimes. I will say things that you know, may not go down too well with some people. I'm not trying to cause anyone any offence. That's the last thing I want to do. So I apologise if any of what I said did get down too well with you. I totally understand that you can be a counsellor and be autistic. I didn't want to imply that you can't be a counsellor if you're autistic, so I hope it didn't come across like that. But I did say earlier on in the video that I was surprised, or, you know, sadly I used to be surprised at the idea of counsellors being autistic, because I guess because I do find it hard to see outside of my own point of view, which is kind of autism thing. I do struggle with that, and because I myself would find it very difficult to be a counsellor, I find it hard to understand how other autistic people can, but then I have to remind myself that obviously autism isn't one thing and that we're all different. I find that concept very difficult because I do struggle to see outside of my own personal experience, which I really struggle with. I think that's because of my autism. It doesn't come in naturally to me to be able to understand other people's experiences. If it doesn't gel with my own, I really struggle to understand it, to empathise with it, and so on. So it can be quite hard for me to grasp that someone else could share the same diagnosis as me and have such radically different experiences, you know, and still be obviously autistic. Which I can understand objectively, but it's difficult sometimes for me to kind of grasp that on an emotional level, because obviously, yeah, autism is very huge, you know, I mean, it's massive, you know. Non-autistics struggle to get that, and I'm autistic and I struggle to get that. Yeah, but obviously, you know, funny enough, when it comes to autism and counselling, back before I knew I was autistic, so actually when I was still at university, I went to my local university. I couldn't cope with halls or anything like that. I was still at home. Essentially, it was a bit like being at school, but, you know, just being at university as opposed to school, but it wasn't really much difference. It's similar to sixth form for me, really. I just walked from home to university, did the lectures, came back home, you know, looked after at home. My parents were looking after me, you know, I didn't really have to look after myself. I didn't have a full university experience, really, but I couldn't cope with halls or anything. But anyway, when I was at university, at the local university where I live, I did at one point consider, as I was coming towards the end of my history degree, so I studied history, whether or not maybe doing a counselling course might be quite interesting, because I became very interested in psychology, and I think this was around a time where it was around the time when I was first getting therapy for my OCD, but it's before my autism was diagnosed, but it was when I was getting help for my OCD, which was diagnosed before my autism, although now I understand that my OCD is basically a part of my autism and it's not classic OCD, but that was before I knew I was autistic. And therapy wasn't working, precisely because I am autistic, and they were treating it like classic OCD when it's not classic OCD, and a lot of it is connected to my autism, so it's quite different. But yeah, anyway, so around that time when I was finding out all about OCD and I was finally accepting I did have OCD, because for a long time, OCD in inverted commas, I use the word OCD, but it's different to classic OCD, as I think I talked about elsewhere. I just use the word OCD because, it's in inverted commas, But I became very interested in psychology for some time. It became a sort of special interest, I think, because I was trying to understand all about my OCD and about, and I became very interested in abnormal psychology, because I was trying to make sense of myself. And I've heard this is quite common with autistic people when they start to come to terms with their difficulties. They start to kind of really, really, really want to understand it, which kind of makes sense because you want to understand yourself, and also because being autistic you tend to get quite obsessive and you want to literally find out everything. So it can very easily become an all-encompassing interest. And that kind of replaced my Kate Winslet interest. It kind of supplanted it because I can't have more than one obsession at a time. And Kate Winslet obsession went on for over a decade. I never thought it would end. I mean, it's so intense. As I've talked about in other videos, which you can go and check out on my channel. I have talked about it before, quite a long time ago, about my Kate Winslet obsession. But yeah, that my interest in psychology and abnormal psychology in particular kind of supplanted the Kate Winslet obsession. And for a while I was thinking maybe I'd find it quite interesting to go and do a counselling course, because at the university where I was studying, I don't want to tell you what university because I do like to keep some things private on this channel just for privacy reasons. But when I was at university, so I'm rather tired, that's why I keep on blinking. At the university where I was at, basically, they also do counselling courses, and I was thinking, that'd be quite interesting. Maybe once I finish my degree, I can go and do a counselling course, because I was really interested in psychology and everything. It never happened, because when I looked at it more closely, I realised there's a lot of group work. There would be a lot of, and this was even before I was diagnosed, I think it was before I was diagnosed autistic, I can't quite remember if it was either before I was diagnosed autistic or shortly after I was diagnosed. I can't quite remember, but it was around about the time I was diagnosed. But yeah, I realised there would be a lot of group work and a lot of kind of interpersonal stuff that I would really struggle with. And I was thinking maybe that wouldn't be such a good idea, because I'd really struggle with that. And it's not just learning about psychology and things like that, it's actually about working with other people, and I really struggle to relate to other people. And learning about psychology academically is one thing, and I've never studied it academically. This was just kind of an amateur interest around the time I found out about my problems. I'm sure it would actually be very, very interesting to study at university, and maybe I would have chosen it. Although I don't think at university I was at, I had a psychology on offer, I'm not sure. And my choices were limited because I had to study at home. So history was the best fit. But I sort of wish I studied psychology. If the option was there, I might have done. Or philosophy or something like that, which are kind of related disciplines. But yeah, so I was considering a counselling course, but I just thought, I struggle with interpersonal stuff. It's lots of group work, and I just didn't think I'd do that well at it, and I'd struggle. And also, my anxiety levels are pretty high as well, and it just never happened. But I guess because of my own experiences, I then often, probably wrongly, I do make assumptions, and I think a lot of it for me is because I struggle to see outside of my own perspective, which is an autism thing, and I'm aware of it, but sometimes there's not much I can do about it because my brain is as it is. I can see it objectively, but emotionally it's a different matter. But like I say, I do sometimes struggle to understand how other autistics can do counselling when I found it so difficult and I didn't even get into it. But clearly, obviously, as Lisa Cromer is an autistic counsellor, so it shows it is possible. But I do think that obviously to be a successful counsellor and to be autistic, you do have to maybe be a little bit more able at the whole theory of mind thing, because obviously autism does vary, and obviously no two autistic people are made the same, we're all different, and obviously there are different strengths and weaknesses in autism. And for myself, I do really struggle with the whole theory of mind thing. I mean, I do have some theory of mind, it's not like I don't have any, but it's very kind of obviously, I have some. I understand enough to know that other people think differently to me. I do have a basic knowledge of it, but I don't kind of understand, although I know that logically, when it comes to actual real interpersonal relationships, I really struggle to understand people thinking differently to me. So I can say it, I know it, but I can't apply it, if that makes sense. So it's a bit like, it's basically textbook knowledge. I've read it in a book. It says people think differently. Okay, but I don't really know how to apply that on an emotional level. So I wouldn't be very good at, so that's what I mean, I struggle with theory of mind on a kind of emotional level. And that's very much part of my autism. What we said before I knew about autism, before I was diagnosed, was basically I struggle with empathy, although it's more correct to say I struggle with theory of mind, because it's not like because empathy, of course, includes way more than theory of mind. And I do obviously, it's not like I don't have any empathy as such, but I do struggle with the whole kind of cognitive bit, if that makes sense. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify that really, in case I said anything offensive in the previous video. But the other thing I wanted to say, yeah, so I do feel that some autistics can be counsellors, but it depends on the type of autism, and I don't think there's one type of autism, so that means that obviously if you have a type of autism, that means that theory of mind isn't so difficult for you, and if you have a type of autism where you can better understand other people, because you have to be a counsellor, and work with other people, and put other people's needs above your own, because to be a counsellor you need to do that. I really struggle with that. I like to dominate conversations. I find it really, I mean, I could put, we often talk about this in the autism group I attend really, when I was talking about autistic counsellors, and another person there, he basically says he's got verbal diarrhoea, and it's so funny, I have too. We both have verbal diarrhoea, but, because we talk too much, and he was basically saying, he couldn't be a counsellor because he really struggles and he would dominate the conversation. I was like, yeah, me too. So obviously it depends on the type of autism you have. To be a good counsellor, you need to listen, and obviously that's something I really struggle with. I do try, but it's something I struggle with. Not going to lie, it's something I struggle with. So you have to admit that. So it depends on the type of autism. The other thing I would say, of course, is that personally, and I have said this in other videos, is that personally I'd rather not have an autistic counsellor. If I was going into counselling as a patient, I don't like the word client, I use the word patient. If I was going into counselling as a patient, I prefer it if a counsellor was non-autistic, just because I feel that no matter how able the autistic person is and able to do the whole theory of mind stuff, at least intellectually, they're still not going to be as good socially as neurotypical, because social problem is kind of part of the criteria of autism. So, even if they're relatively good at that for an autistic, they're still not going to be as good at it as a neurotypical, and I'd rather have a neurotypical counsellor personally. That's just me. Okay, so moving on to video number 2.